Hello everybody, welcome to the third lecture of this Unit 5 of Module 5, Beyond Scientific Papers. Literature can offer us a very productive field in which to approach narrative medicine. In this introductory lecture, we will present the literary material developed at the intersection between literature and medicine, with a special emphasis on its fruitfulness in relation to spirituality, care, and relationship between medicine and patients. Medicine has incorporated the knowledge and methods of scientific disciplines such as molecular biology, human genetics, and bioengineering to achieve advance in diagnosis and therapy. Medicine in recent years are beginning to turn to the humanities, to disciplines such as literary studies, to make equally essential progress in understanding the suffering of their patients, so that they can accompany patients through illness with empathy, respect, and effective care. According to Terry and Gogel, there are two arguments that are often used to justify the study of literature and medicine. One is the development of different skills, such as the improvement of language, the cultivation of words and things and symbols, or the help in the elaboration of stories. All these skills and talents can be useful for both literary and medical work. A second argument has to do with emotional and ethical development, with the help literature can offer in cultivating empathy for the suffering of others, acceptance of human failure, and mortality. If we analyze the two fields separately, literature and medicine may seem to us to be very distant spaces. The calmness, for example, with which someone can read a literary text is far removed from the tension that clinical practice often demands. The doctor usually comes face to face with the patient in real time. However, literature offers us the possibility of communication through words and text, which is far removed from the time in which it was written, and also physically distances us from the writer of the text. And evidently, the reading of a diagnosis has to be based on evidence and certainties, while in a literary text it seems a priori that the reader has a great capacity for interpretation, and it is also important to point out for pleasure. But there are also analogies between literature and medicine. For example, Terry and Gogel point out the similarity between reading a poem and interpreting it, and reading a diagnosis. In both cases, certain aspects that stand out in the first reading will help us to achieve the final interpretation, in the case of the poem, or the appropriate diagnosis in the case of the patient. In both cases, it is also important to pay attention to the small details in order to be able to make a correct reading of everything that is being said to us, or, in other words, to pay attention to the parts and give them their importance in order to understand the whole. Aspects such as tone, voice, form, and presentation are fundamental when interpreting, be it a poem or a passion. Literature, therefore, seems to be a field that can be greatly assist clinical practice. Introduced in US medical schools in 1972, the field of literature and medicine provides methods and tests that can help physicians develop skills in the human dimensions of medical practice. The inclusion of the study of literature in medical education achieved five general objectives. Literary stories about illness can teach physicians concrete and powerful lessons about the lives of the sick. Great works of fiction about medicine enable physicians to recognize the power and implication of what they do. Through narrative knowledge, physicians can better understand patients' stories of illness, thereby enhancing diagnostic accuracy and therapeutic efficacy, while deepening their understanding or their own personal interest in medical practice. Literary study contributes to physicians' expertise in narrative ethics and help physicians to engage in longitudinal acts of ethical discernment. Literary theory offers new perspective on the work and genres of medicine. Reading some classic literary texts, according to Koto and Koto, could provide an underexplored avenue for a comparative and critical picture of various forms of medical practice, including contemporary medical practice. Some of these samples they point to are The Death of Ivan Ilyich by Lev Tolstoy. Ivan Ilyich only cared about one question: was his illness serious or not? But the doctor ignored it. It was not about Ivan Ilyich life, but about finding out what his illness was. Tolstoy's story is about suffering, dying, and death, and can be illuminated to read for other medical purposes, such as addressing the indeterminacy of and therapeutic poverty that is sometimes found in medicine, and also the asymmetry between patient and doctor. The Country Doctor by Kafka. Kafka presents the thoughts of an elderly doctor when he is called to attend to a young man who is apparently very ill. Kafka shows a radically different model of medical practice from Tolstoy's. The doctor's diagnostic conclusion yields to the conviction and wishes of the family. The child is ill because the family thinks so, and the doctor submits to their will, even if he does not understand it. The Diagnosis by Lightman. This novel portrays the anguish of a young executive visited by the progressive dysfunction of a neurological disease that remains undefined throughout the book. Novel shows a serious distortion of a clinical encounter without an empathic relationship between doctor and patient. The climate created points to the predominance of technical diagnosis of the postponement of treatment. Although medicine may seem somewhat late to participate in the interest in narrative thinking, many researchers have long used narrative methods in the study of medical phenomena such as doctor-patient interaction and patient phenomenological experience of illness. More recently, narrative methods have been adopted in the investigation of medical issues such as risk factor for hip replacement in elderly patients, patients' ability to make sense of chronic illness, and cross-cultural examination of oncology practice. From the point of view of medicine, narrative study allows the literary critic, historian, the philosopher, and the anthropologist to work alongside the physician for the good of the patient. This is the end of lecture 1. See you in the next.